Hello everybody, this is News Reporter Jack reporting to you live from Harlem, New York with the news. And today we have learned that Calvin has said, we got to move. I don't know where he's moving to or what's going on, but let's go to Calvin's house to find out just what's happening. He wants to move, and he said, we got to move. I can't believe that. So it's about Bob the groundhog is here. He just went into the ground. Okay, everybody, let's see what's happening. Oh, hi, everybody. I'm Youth Pastor Emmanuel, and every week, our good friend, News Reporter Jack, he forgets to mention me. But today, we're talking about we got to move. Yeah. And it was a time when people had to move. And we're going to find out about that. Now, the Bible verse today is Exodus 3:7. The Lord said, I have seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of the slave drivers, and I'm concerned about their suffering. Well, God saw the suffering of the Jewish people and was concerned about it. He told Moses to go back to Egypt and lead the Jews to freedom. Now, Moses was leading them to a different place where they would no longer be slaves and treated mean. African Americans were not Jews, and there was no Moses figure to lead them out of Egypt, because they left the South really because of the evil Jim Crow laws, lynchings, which was murder, and African Americans left the South to find new opportunities elsewhere. And we're going to learn about that today, because we're going to learn about the Great Migration. African Americans left. Now, the word Exodus in the Bible means that they left someplace, and the place they were leaving was Egypt. Now, African Americans, of course, they left the South, and they left the South to find new opportunities and to escape the evil Jim Crow laws. So, let's go to Calvin's house. I understand there's some problems there, and let's see just what's happening at Calvin's house. That's it. I'm not going to take it no more. I'm going to leave. I don't say. I always have to clean my room. If you look at my room, you'll see it's messy. But, I don't like it here. I have to clean my room. My cousin, Ray, his room is always neat. He doesn't want me in his room because he knows I'm going to mess it up. Oh, do you think that's nice? Oh, I don't know. Oh, I just heard my dad call me. Did you hear my dad call me? Oh! Okay, Calvin. I keep hearing you talk about you want to move out. Now, exactly where would you want to move to, and why do you want to move out of the house? You said that we got to move, so are you talking about you and the Ray, or just yourself? And why do you want to move? Well, I always have to keep a neat and clean room, like a Ray, and I just want to, have a messy room. What's wrong with that? Well, Calvin, having a neat room is going to help you later on, and it's going to help you be able to keep things in order. So it's really important that you have a neat and clean room. Now, when you said you want to move out, that reminds me of something about African American history, and I believe I'm going to share it with you right now. It was called the Great Migration. You want to say something, Calvin? Oh no! Another African African American history lesson. Oh, okay. I'll find out what you're talking about. Because remember, I gotta play Madden football. Well, I guess to you, Madden football is important, but this is important too. It has pertained to moving out. Now, the Great Migration was one of the largest movements of people in the United States history. Approximately 6 million African Americans moved from the American South to northern, midwestern, and western states roughly from 1910s until the 1970s. The driving force behind the mass movement was to escape racial violence, pursue economic and educational opportunities, and obtain freedom from the oppressive Jim Crow laws. The Great Migration is often broken into two phases, coinciding with the participation and the effects of the United States in both world wars. The first migration took place between 1910 and 1940, which had blacks in the South relocate to northern, midwestern, and also eastern cities like New York, Chicago, Detroit, Pittsburgh. When the war effort ramped up in 1970, more able-bodied men were sent off to Europe to fight, leaving their industrial jobs vacant. Labor was further strained with the decline of immigration from Europe and the standing bans on people of color from other parts of the world. All of this afforded opportunities for the African Americans to be the labor supply in non-agricultural industries. Although migrants found better jobs and fled the South, entrenched with Jim Crow, many African Americans faced injustices and difficulties after migrating. The Red Summer of 1919 was rooted in tensions and prejudice that arose from white people having to adjust to the new demographic changes in their local communities. In other words, more African Americans were living there, and white people had to adjust to that. They didn't like it. From World War I until World War II, it is estimated about 2 million African Americans left the South for other parts of the country. World War II brought an expansion to the nation's defense industry and many more jobs for African Americans in other locales, and it encouraged them to get jobs in other places. And this actually took place all the way up into the 1970s. During this period, more people moved north and further west to places like California, and they went in cities like Oakland, Los Angeles, San Francisco, as well as Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. Within 20 years of World War II, after 20 years of World War II, further 3 million African American people migrated throughout the United States. African Americans migrated during the second phase of the Great Migration were met with housing discriminations as localities started to implement restrictive covenants and redlining, which created segregated neighborhoods, but also served as a foundation for the existing racial disparities and wealth in the United States. Records of this topic, I shouldn't say typical, but records of this topic covered migration information and trends captured by various branches and agencies of the government, including employment and housing. There also were records reflecting cultural and social aspects of the lives of those who participated and were impacted by the Great Migration. In other words, when African Americans went to these different cities, they actually had an impact on it and changed the culture and the environment by which they moved to. But you have a question, Calvin?
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned some things which I'm not too sure I know about. What's redlining and what's what was the other word? Covenants and things like that. What are you talking about, Dad?
Okay, Calvin, let's start with the first one. Restrictive covenants. People would sign legal documents, especially white people, stating that they could not sell their home to an African American. And if they did, it would carry some type of penalty. So that's what that was. The second was redlining. Redlining was a practice of discrimination where loans would be denied of people, and also they would place minorities or African Americans and communities that were pretty much all African American. And then what they would do was would draw lines on the map or draw an area around certain areas, and it said that African American areas were very risky. And this prevented a lot of African Americans from obtaining generational wealth, which means they weren't able to accumulate a lot of equity through the sale of their home because of what was being done to them, the practice. And it became illegal, so that happened. But let me finish the rest of it. Now, the Red Summer was something I had mentioned, but I want to go into it a little bit further. Early in the 20th century, listen to me, the 1920s, actually, early in the 20th century, witnessed the migration of hundreds and thousands of African Americans from the South to the Northeast, Midwest, and West. And like we said before, one of the causes for the mass migration was racial violence, including lynching and racial massacres that were targeted Southern blacks, as well as the return of the Ku Klux Klan. And this was a white supremacist terrorist organization that first appeared after the Civil War. And the people would dress up with pointed hoods and white clothing. They were supposed to be representing the dead soldiers of the Civil War coming back to fight for the lost cause, which was to oppress African Americans. Now, this period was a part of what Rayford W. Logan termed as the nadir of African American history that began with the collapse of the Reconstruction eras, or in 1877. During this period, I would say, the political and legal gains won by African Americans during Reconstruction were dismantled, particularly by denying African Americans the right to vote and legalizing racial segregation. More notably, in 1896, U.S. Supreme Court decision in Plessy versus Ferguson, which made racial discrimination or racial segregation legal until 1954. In addition, those suffering these political and legal injustices. You have a question, Calvin?
Yeah, I have a question. Why are you telling me all this? I mean, come on, Dad. Why do I have to know? I just want to know. Why do I have to know all of this history?
Well, Calvin, I'm telling you this story, these things, and they're not stories actually, this history because of one thing. I don't want to see you or Delaware have to repeat the things that African Americans have gone through before. So if you don't understand history and you refuse to know it, what will happen is you'll be doomed to repeat it. Now, in addition to those suffering from these like political and legal injustices, Thousands of African Americans were hanged, burned to death, shot to death, tortured, mutilated, castrated by white mobs who also were persecuted for their crimes. And these types of things happen in the South. One of the leaders in fighting the lynching was Ida B. Wells Barnett, the author of The Red Record. The Red Summer was a pattern of white on black violence that occurred in 1919, I'm sorry, I gave the wrong date. 1919 throughout the United States. There were about 25 or 26 what they called racial riots. The post-World War I period was marked by a spike of racial violence. Much of it was directed towards African American veterans returning from Europe, where they were often treated better than their white Americans despite their brave service to the country. The bloodiest incident occurred in Elaine, Arkansas, where an estimated 100 African Americans were killed. The racial violence of the Red Summer erupted in many southern locations as well as in the north, most notably Chicago. The presence of racial hostility in the north was part of a reaction to northern whites and to the large influx of African Americans into northern cities during the Great Migration. Though this hostility did not prevent large number of African Americans from heading north. And what happened when they head north, like I said, a lot of whites thought that African Americans were taking their houses and taking jobs away from them. A lot of whites thought that that's what African Americans were there for, and they became very upset. And during the summer of 1919, a lot of racial riots took place. So I want to tell you that. And you said you want to move out, but understand that African Americans overcame all of those obstacles, and that's why we enjoy what we have now, because of the suffering and African Americans fighting back and obtaining a lot of rights for us now. Okay, so you want to move out, Calvin?
I don't know. I just better go to my room, see if I can find my Madden football game. But you know, just listening to the things you said, it gives me a lot to think about. I have to appreciate where I am and what I have because of the sacrifices and the bold moves that African Americans made years and years ago. Wow, that was over 100 years ago. Look how far we've come. I wonder what Youth Pastor Emmanuel has to say.
Oh, wow. We learned a lot there about the Great Migration of African Americans, and I think I learned a lot too, and learned a lot about the Red Summer. And also, one of the things that the Red Summer did, and a lot of those incidences and riots, started because white people were given a rumor that African American men were trying to assault white women, and they wanted to go out and protect them. And this was something, anyway, we're going to learn about O.W. Gurley and find out that this was something similar that happened in Tulsa. So, that we're going to learn about next. But remember Exodus 3:7, and God said that I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt, and I've heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I'm concerned about their suffering. God was concerned about African Americans also, and God made a way not only for African Americans to escape the suffering, but also to prosper. Now, it was a very hard thing and very difficult, so that's why as we live here today, we need to appreciate the things that we have, because there were people who lived over 100 years ago that made a way for us to have the comforts and the freedoms that we have today. Well, I'll see you again. Have a great week.